Welcome back from the break, back to today's semi-final debate. Today's debate is on the statement police should be allowed to carry weapons, and we have Team Smart Hallows who are debating against that statement and Team Freedom Fighters who are debating for that statement. Both teams battling it out for the last remaining place in the prospective grand final. So now we're heading into the second part of today's debate, which is the actual debate round, where both teams will go head to head with their different points and actually debate with each other, trying to win points over from the judges. So without further ado, let's get into it. What I'm going to do is, like I said previously, I'm going to ask one of you guys to come up with an opening statement, and we're going to see how the other team can counter. So I'm going to come over to the Smart Hallows first, who are against today's motion. I'm going to ask one of you guys to give your team's opening statement, and we'll see how the Freedom Fighters can respond.
Because of police brutality, last year police killed 1,023 people, many of whom were unarmed, mentally ill, or people of colour.
Okay, Team Freedom Fighters, how can you justify those 1,023 deaths?
Well, I'd like to say that, first, you said that they died because they've been shot. However, do you know exactly what type of bullet was used or what gun was used? Because apparently, if this is in America, then perhaps
It's fine, take your time.
Oh yes, perhaps the Hackler and Koch MP5 semi-automatic carbine gun was actually used, and that's actually a submachine gun which was used to kill Mark Duggan in one of the riots that took place. So maybe all these killings actually did happen because the wrong weapon was used. And since we have better technology now, surely we could invest in spending more research and time into these different types of weapons, and that would actually reduce the killing. In terms of people that are in colour being shot, well, I think in terms of awareness, it does need to be spread that lots of people of ethnic minorities can be killed. However, if they are trained properly, this wouldn't happen. And since the only evidence for this going wrong is in America or in other countries, they obviously have different systems, and they also do have different perspectives in this topic. So maybe the UK would be different.
Okay, thank you very much. Smart Hallows, would you like to respond?
You said that it's mostly in different countries such as America and other countries where police are allowed to carry guns. Well, take an example. On the 27th of September in the UK, on the motorway M5, a police was trying to stop a car from going too fast and opened fire at the car. He accidentally killed the person. You said that only this would happen in America, but this has not happened in America. This has happened in this country with the police with that gun.
Okay, Nadira, would you like to respond?
Yes. Actually, the example that I gave of Mark Duggan happened in the UK, so I am aware of the fact that this can happen in the UK. But in terms of what you just said about how he accidentally killed, I do think that still, if he did have the correct weapon, then maybe he wouldn't have been. The person wouldn't have died. He might have been injured, maybe severely, but he still would have lived, and that could have eventually allowed them to have better suspicion of if he was guilty or not in terms of that case. So as I said before, rubber bullets, as this is my alternative, they only do cause bone fracture in the adult that is hit by them. So obviously that can heal, so it wouldn't cause as much harm.
Nadira, in terms of the 1,023 deaths which you mentioned, you said that if those guns which you mentioned before weren't used, the person wouldn't have died. So are you trying to say that it would be okay if a person was injured for no reason as well? Because even if you use rubber bullets, they would have been severely injured. So is that still okay for police to, without any justification, injure people?
Well, surely if the police is willing to use their gun, then I do think that they could have some sort of justification to suggest that. I mean, in an example that I'll suggest before, Mark Duggan was actually shot because he was suspected of dealing drugs, and he also did have a severe criminal record. But when they did suspect that he was one of the murderers of this man called Gavin Smith, they were correct in that sense. So they did actually shoot him. and unfortunately he did die. However, I do think that if somebody is injured severely, I mean, surely the fact that now it's known is better than if they were dead.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm gonna, Adib, did you have a response? Okay.
If they did not have guns, they would have thought of another tactical approach to capture him. So if they captured him, they would have been able to have more evidence of this, and they would have been able to take him to court and find out evidence that this guy actually did harm. Because you can't just kill somebody without actually proper evidence and actually confronting the person yourself.
Okay, thank you very much, Adib. I'm going to call an end to that string of debate there. So now I'm going to come over to freedom fighters, and I'm going to ask one of you guys to give your opening statements, please.
I actually believe that officers carrying guns can stop an attack more quickly. Because, for example, there was a nice attack in France July last year, and 80 people died. If this nice attack happened in London, how far would that lorry have travelled before it could be stopped with no officers that were armed? And the perpetrator of the Berlin Christmas attack would have not faced armed police had he escaped through Britain. This means that we would be facing dead officers and a terrorist still on the run.
Police have nowadays been given a remote
Take your time. It's fine.
They've been given a type of phone which has a special button. This button will call special groups which have been trained properly with arms, and they have been trained and have been and specialized with arms. They are not police who walk around the everyday street, but they are still a group that can stop terrorists from running.
Okay.
Yeah, but what about the police that are not armed? What are they going to do? For example, in 1987, there was a massacre in Hungerford where 16 people were shot and a police officer died. The unarmed police were told to return back to the stations. Imagine what it must have been like to sit in a station while a manhunt was underway, knowing that you could not help protect the people because they didn't have any guns on them.
Sure.
Actually, if you're saying that they do have a special button that can call more specialized police or armed people to come into that situation, obviously that would take a lot more time, and perhaps the problem that you're dealing with could get worse. I think that if the policemen that were actually there, so they are in the streets, if they had the guns, if they were specialized enough to that level where they would be almost as good as the people that they would call, then surely the time management in terms of that problem would be better.
Okay. So in response to the idea of a button that you were saying, surely that would take time for those special tactical teams to come in. So.
But they won't be on the street, and then the the attack has happened. They would have been told in advance that there's people running loose with guns. Then they would, in the same time that would be taken for them to get to this place, the special armed police could get to that. Not even police, the special armed force could get to that place at the same time as the police. So it would create no difference.
But Adib, wouldn't you agree that if there was a terrorist on the run, if the police officer who saw it originally, if he had a gun there, right there and then with him, he would be able to shoot the terrorist right there and then, as opposed to pressing a button and having to wait for 5 to 10 minutes for a team to come down, and within that time a lot of damage may have already been caused by the terrorist.
Well, you never know that if that police officer wasn't trained enough and had a gun on him, he could have tried killing the terrorist, but ended up killing other unarmed, innocent people instead of the terrorist.
Okay, thank you very much, Ikra. Would you guys like to respond to that?
Yes, so I do think that if there was a problem and a police officer wasn't armed, I'll give an example. So a recent example was in March 2017, where Keith Palmer was actually stabbed because he didn't have a gun on him, and he was waiting, so like you said, he was waiting for the specialist police officers to actually arrive. But obviously the police officers that are currently there have to do something. They can't just watch him stab more people. So because they obviously had to do something, he tried fighting the terrorist, and he was actually stabbed and died. So I don't really think it's fair to say that we should just wait and cause the problem to get worse for the specialist police to come. when Keith Palmer, who is actually was awarded the George Medal on the Queen's Birthday Honours, and is very well known for getting actually 150 arrests in 12 months. So he is a very high professional policeman, but he didn't have a gun, so he died.
Okay, so the idea of time, if police officers are allowed to carry weapons, the time in which criminals can cause damage is limited. How would you guys respond to that? Smart hellos trying to cook up a response here.
They can also use non-lethal weapons such as gases to put them to sleep or make them dizzy. This will help them to give them time, and the other police will be able to come, because if they are managed to make time using weapons which will not kill them, they
Can continue.
They will have more time, and they will not be able to kill that much people in that much time.
Okay, thank you very much, Adib. I'm going to call an end to that string of debate there. Now I'm going to come back to the smart hellos, and I'm going to ask you guys to yet again give another one of your opening statements, and we'll see how the freedom fighters can respond this time. So smart hellos, can I get a point from you, please?
Okay. In America, when a teenager suffering from a mental illness killed a tourist, the police dealt with the situation without a single bullet being fired. So this does prove that they can deal with situations without guns.
Okay, so a situation where the actual criminal had a gun on them, the police managed to deal with the situation without needing any weapons of their own. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think that the fact that the policeman could respond to that without using a gun is perfect. I mean, that's great. But that doesn't mean that in another circumstance, where he didn't have a gun or she didn't have a gun, and she couldn't deal with the situation, then that would obviously cause more problems. So what I'm trying to say is that, yes, some cases can be used without guns, but having a gun on you doesn't mean you always have to use it with every single arrest that you make. So I don't really see the point in that.
If police carry guns everywhere on every street, if you walk down the street, you will see at least 3 police officers on that street. If they all carry guns, you will actually be scared of what they're going to do to you. If something's happening, you'll be scared to ask for help, because they might threaten you as they have a gun. This people would actually try and would want to live in a free and fair democratic place where they can pick to be good from their own heart instead of being forced to by guns.
Okay, Abi Saeed, would you like to respond?
I think since the technology has advanced over the years, nowadays there are police officers with body cameras, and they are on like 24/7. So when they make arrests, it can be seen what they're doing and if they are doing a right thing or wrong thing. And from my point of view, I think that police officers are mature and responsible enough to use the firearm at the right place and at the right time. For example, there was an incident that happened a few years ago, and there was a police officer the police officers who were in the car, and there was a criminal that was charging towards them with an axe. So the police officer was able to react immediately to defend themselves by having a taser on them, and they quickly put down the criminal at close range.
Okay, thank you very much. Samir, would you like to add on? Very quickly.
So you said that you believe if you saw a police officer with a gun, you'd be afraid of them. But for me personally, I believe that this wouldn't rip off the approachability, but increase them. Because if you see a police with a gun, you know their job is to protect us. So seeing that, it's like a symbolism. It's like the modern version of our knights in shining armor, because they're protecting us, and they wouldn't harm us in any way unless we're doing something.
Well, like you said before in your opening speech, the police are your friends. I mean, they're here to help you, the community. So surely, if we just increase the awareness of guns that policemen have, then the community wouldn't be as afraid anymore.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to have to call an end to that string of debate. Sorry about that, Adib. But we've heard some very, very good points come from both teams, and I'm sure that the judges are very pleased and they're ready with their own questions for the third and final part of today's show, which is the judges round, where the judges will be asking questions to the contestants. But before we go over there, we're going to have a very, very short break.